Hello, hello out there. It is episode 225 of the Laravel News Podcast. Today is October 15th, 2024. Welcome to the show, everybody. Glad to have you here. With me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Michael Dorinda. How's it going over there, dude?
Hello. Going well. It's starting to warm up here, which I'm simultaneously happy and confused about.
Why are you confused?
Because it's been getting to like 28, 30 degrees Celsius during the day. But in the mornings, when I go out for my runs and my walks and whatever else, it's still like cold.
And how cold?
So yesterday was okay, but it was very windy. Whereas it's been 14, 16 degrees Celsius in the mornings, which is like not cold.
That's chilly.
But 60, when you're expecting so it starts out very chilly in the morning, but by the end of the day, you're
roasting. Yeah.
Roasting. And, T-shirt, I've got the air conditioner on, I've got the fan on. It's out of control at the moment.
Yeah, you're in that weird space where it's like your thermostat has to be on heat and cool at the same time, right? It's like it's got to handle both. You got to cool the house to 74 and you got to heat the house to 68 or something like that for us. I mean, Fahrenheit people over here, sorry. Yeah, no, I get that. We're in a similar season. We're just on the other side of it, which is, I think we had our last really nice day here in central Illinois on Sunday, probably. It was up in it was like 80, and now it's not supposed to really get above 60 for quite some time now. So that's okay. It's time. It is time. It was a good summer, and it was a nice long fall. So now we're sliding into the cooler months, which that's fine. It's a little bit annoying. I'm not super stoked about it, but whatever.
The thing that's most annoying is that for the last week, it's basically been forecast to rain every day, but also to be 28, 26, 30 degrees and things like that. So I'm like, do I put my sprinkler on? Do I water my lawn, or is it going to rain? And then it doesn't rain, and then I haven't put the sprinkler on, and
dead grass
happens so quickly as well.
AstroTurf. Yeah, just AstroTurf, that whole thing. I just
anyway, this is not the weather pod. This is the
not the weather
podcast.
But I do want to say one more thing, because I am interested to know how many of you out there have a one wheel. I just got one, and I've got to say, it's like my new favorite thing. It is so fun. Here is the best thing here is the most descriptive description I can give of what this feels like. You remember Marty McFly on a hoverboard? And when you're a kid, you're like, oh, dude, that'd be so cool to have one of those. It feels like that. It feels like you're floating. I'm not kidding. It is the coolest thing. You just lean, and it just goes. And it's like you think of where you want it to go, and that's where it goes. And you're just floating. It is so fun. And so I'm riding it every day. It's awesome. And yesterday, my son crashed it going like 20. Thank God he didn't crack his head open, but no more riding without a helmet for that kid, because he he was trying to beat my time around the block. I wasn't even home, and he was like, he called me, "Can I ride the one wheel?" Yeah, sure, no problem. And the next thing I know, he's texting me pictures of his sweatshirt all ripped up and his pants all ripped up. And what'd you do? He's like, I was trying to beat your time around the block. I'm like, what in the world? Anyway, if you are out there and you happen to be a one-wheeler, I don't know, and this for sure not the correct terminology, but if you're one of those people, hit me up on Twitter. I'd love to talk about it. It's been super fun. Anyway, shall we get into the show?
Let's do it.
11.26 is the Laravel version we're going to start with, written up by Mr. Paul Redmond. The Laravel team released this on the week of October 2nd with the ability to gracefully stop a pool of processes using enums when defining rate limiting, an artisan command to make job middleware, and more. So Seth Fat continues on this, and it's not Seth that's doing this. This is just sort of like a continuing march forward towards the using of enums everywhere inside of Laravel, which I am all for. We use enums like they're going out of style in our applications, and so I'm very happy to announce that we have even more places now where you can use backed enums. So you can he contributed the using of backed enum and unit enums to register a rate limiter. So if you have a rate limiter 4 and then you specify what that rate limiter is, that in that location right there, you can use a backed enum. So you might have like a global rate limit, : and then a case called like API, or maybe you have something like logins or whatever you might have, right? You can also use them with the rate-limited QJob middleware. So if you happen to have the rate-limited middleware on something, you can pass that enum in to that location as well, and it will just work. It automatically casts it to the string value for you, and you're all set. So very cool there. All right. Dave Shafek contributed a make job middleware artisan command, and this will create new job middlewares inside of the app jobs middleware namespace. So you can apply those onto a job specifically, and now you have a nice little command to make those nice and easy. Matthias Hansen contributed an update to stop all processes in a pool gracefully that are running. So if you're using that process, is it a facade? I think it's a facade, but the new process feature, which basically uses, I think, Symfony's underlying process library. If you have a pool of those things, you can now gracefully stop all those processes by calling stop on those. And you can also call stop with a specific signal if you would like as well. So thank you to Matthias for contributing that one. Punyapal Shah contributed an update to the make model command that includes a generic annotation for the has factory trait. So this helps IDEs understand the factory type that's returned for a given model factory call. So previous to Laravel 11.26, the stub would generate with the has factory, but with the release of Laravel 11.26, in addition to saying use has factory, and now also on top of that has the generic annotation for that, so that when your IDE is looking at it, it understands when you call arrow factory, it knows exactly what it's trying to accomplish there. You can see the complete list of new features, of course, in the diff between 11.25 and 26 on GitHub. And of course, as well, there is a bunch of different changes on there, fixes, other enhancements that we didn't talk about on this one, but you can check them out yourself on GitHub. Thanks, Paul, for writing that one up.
Nice. Released the week of October 9th was Laravel 11.27. First up in this release, Ryan Holton contributed a configurable default currency setting for the number helper. The USD currency setting is still the default, but now you can define a different value without using the in argument to override. So now you can set this globally, perhaps in a service provider or something like that. We say number : use currency and provide it the currency annotation, so EUR in the case of euro, and that way anywhere that you subsequently use number will then use the currency annotation. And then you can switch back if you need to in certain scenarios, so you can pass a second parameter to number : currency as in the named argument, and then use USD in specific situations if you need to. So thanks to Ryan for that one. Next up, Ryan Holton also contributed a doesn't contain method to the string helper, which is the inverse of the contains method. Very nice. Hafez Divandari contributed a performance update to the schema has table method. Quoting now from the pull request, the schema has table method is using the schema get table method internally. So has table is using get table internally, which could sometimes result in an expensive query to the database. This pull request improves the performance of schema has table by using a more lightweight selection of queries. So thank you to Hafez for that. We have some murky places within our main application where we are using the not the has table but the get table functionality in order to look at valid fields for doing some mapping to make sure that no invalid fields are being passed into the database through API endpoints. And so this is a place where I assume we would get an implicit performance boost just from the change to make more lightweight queries used under the hood. So thank you to Hafez for that. Next up, Ryan Chandler added Markdown extension support to the string inline Markdown and string global helper inline Markdown methods, matching the update in Laravel 11.14 to add extension support to the Markdown method. And lastly in this release, Ollie Reed contributed an update to the HTTP kernel that allows programmatic insertion of the middleware in relation to existing middleware in the priority stack. Specifically, this introduces two new public methods. The first one is add to middleware priority after, which inserts middle after specified middleware, and add middleware priority before, which inserts middleware before specified middleware. These changes make it easier for package developers to manage middleware priority without requiring any user intervention, so users of the package. There are 2 examples in the pull request description. We will link to that for you in the show notes so that you can make sense of it for yourselves. But thank you to Ollie, and thank you once again to all of the contributors to this release.
Very nice. I actually forgot about that markdown thing. And I think all it's really saying there for the 11.14 is inline markdown is the now is the thing that was being added to there. Previously in 11.14 it was just string markdown, but inline markdown is now in line with extension support where it previously did not have that. So also that appending middleware relative to other middlewares, that's pretty cool actually. I can see that being very useful in the case that you're developing a package or something like that. That'd be really nice. Okay, continuing on the releases bandwagon here. We've got Inertia.js version 2 beta is now available. It was released this week. That is the week of October 11th. The core library has been rewritten to support asynchronous requests, unlocking some impressive features which you can now get your hands on. This was also what Taylor talked about, a large portion of his keynote during Laracon in Dallas this year. Talked about all the new features that were coming to Inertia that have now been enabled with some of the things that were in Laravel 11. And so Jonathan Rennick, who is the author of Inertia, had a tweet out there saying, "This is a huge step forward for Inertia. The core library has been completely rewritten to architecturally support asynchronous requests, which enable a whole set of new features. Let's talk about what those are." So async requests, these non-blocking requests, all reload requests are now asynchronous by default. What are some of the other things that now enables? Well, you can now easily pull the server for updated data. That's pulling. Lazy loading data on scroll. So when a component becomes visible, or you can set like a buffer in to say like if it's within 200 pixels of seeing this thing on the screen, then start loading that data asynchronously, which is also, some of us would call that infinite scrolling. So you can build these infinite scrolling experiences really easily. You can also prefetch pages in the background and then instantly load those at the time that the user clicks on that button. So you can say on hover, start prefetching, and then when they click it, then go ahead and show that page. You can defer expensive props and load them in the background after the page loads, so you don't have to wait for everything before you get a page render. And then you also have history encryption. So browser history state is encrypted to prevent seeing privileged information after you log out. So somebody can't click the back button a bunch of times and get back to a previous state that you were in because of the browser history state. So to start using the beta, you can look at the resources that are linked up here, which we will put in the show notes. They have the Inertia.js 2 beta documentation, an upgrade guide for how you can get from 1 to 2, and then the release on GitHub for version 2 beta 1. Please do remember that the code is in beta, so the documentation is considered a work in progress. You, of course, can report bugs on GitHub. Congratulations to Jonathan Taylor, Joe Tannenbaum, Pedro Borges, and all those who are contributed to the Inertia and Laravel frameworks. Appreciate all that work out there. Thanks, Paul, for writing that one up.
Just to add briefly to what you said there about the infinite scrolling stuff, Joe Tannenbaum did actually tweet out overnight some functionality that he's been building to specifically for infinite scrolling with some components that he's built that do all of this stuff for you. So I'll link that in the show notes as well. You can check out. I'm not sure if that will end up as part of Inertia itself, or if it would be as a add-on plugin or something like that. But check it out. That is very interesting. Moving on to the news, we have a new contributor to Laravel News. This is Yannick Lin Fat, is telling us how you can install PHP and the Laravel installer with a single command. This is something that Taylor tweeted out last week at the time of this recording, I think, which is basically a one-line installation command. So you can run it through curl or run it from curl from a machine that has no PHP, no Composer, no Laravel, nothing installed. And this works on Mac, on Windows with WSL, I think, and also in Linux. So this allows you to basically get up and running with everything that you need on your machine. And this is the official quote-unquote one-step way of getting up and running for Laravel development and PHP in general, I suppose, on a new machine. Check it out. We'll have links to it in the show notes.
Very good. Okay, we are going to move on to Let's see here. Oh yeah, we did move on to the news already. Sorry.
We did.
I'm gonna take the second piece of news, which is Eric Barnes interviewing in not the creator spotlight, but the community. What do they call it? The community something. Hold on, let's see. Community spotlight. That's what it is. Not the creator spotlight. Community spotlight. And on the show this time we had Jack McDade, which you might be familiar with that name if you've ever used Statamic, or if you've looked at his radical design course, or if you happen to be at Laracon in Louisville or in Dallas this year. Jack McDade has been a speaker at Laracon a couple times. Great dude, longtime community member. So in this episode, I talked with Jack about Statamic, that radical design course, business, marketing, and lots more, including something called Torched Tuna, which is a YouTube channel that Jack has frequented or maybe even created. I'm not sure. Also talked a little bit about Flat Camp. Flat Camp is the sort of, I don't even know if you could call it a conference. It's more of like a retreat for Statamic folks, but it was in Rome this year in June. And so if you would like to go to Flat Camp next year, you can go check out flatcamp.com. You can see the photo gallery, all the fun that they had there. And you can also see just the kick-butt sites that Jack creates. I love his stuff. It always looks so fresh, right? You go out and you see a million websites that look the same. Jack always does such a good job of creating sites that look unique, but just feel very polished, very user-friendly. And if you haven't had a chance yet to watch his talk from Laracon this year, was one of my favorites. And it was so good, just about curating things in your everyday experiences to give you inspiration for your next website design. And so really enjoyed that talk. You should definitely go check that one out. And while you're at it, check out this YouTube community spotlight. Thanks, Eric, for putting that one out there.
Nice. Also in the creator/community spotlight series, another interview, this one with Joel Clermont. If you're not familiar with Joel, I know you, Jake, are. You've spent some time with him at your Laracon online viewing parties and things like that. He is one half of No Compromises. He's got a podcast. He's got some books, talks about mastering Laravel. He's got a Laravel tips daily newsletter that always has something interesting in it, and he's not missed a tip for 2 years now, I think, daily. So definitely check that out. There's some free and some paid resources. I haven't caught this episode myself yet, but Joel always has something very interesting to say, so be sure to check this one out as well. We'll have links to this and also Jack McDade's obviously in the show notes.
Awesome. Next, we've got an article by Ash Allen. So Ash Allen, we've talked about him a couple times on the show here before, but he always does a good job writing up these long posts. So I'm not sure if we should really categorize this as news or more of a tutorial, but we're going to talk about it in any case right now. So Ash takes a couple minutes to introduce people to PhpStorm, but more importantly, Laravel IDEA. So his article here is called Supercharge PhpStorm with Laravel IDEA. So Laravel IDEA is one of the most popular plugins for Laravel developers. And in the article, he takes a look at what it is and some of the favorite features that Ash uses when he's writing Laravel. So the first question you might be asking is, how much does it cost? So there are two different plans that it includes, which are personal and organization. The personal plan is about $5 a month for the first year, and about $4 for the second year, then $3 for the third year onwards, right? And that's per month. But if you choose to pay annually, those prices are even lower. If you're on a organization plan, it's a little bit more than that, but there is also a 30-day free trial. What I will say is if you learn to use Laravel IDEA well, you will definitely save yourself at least $5 of time a month. I promise you that. So to get installed with Laravel IDEA, or to get started installing it, Ash walks through how to do that inside of PhpStorm. Really simple to do. What are some of the things that you might use if you happen to install Laravel IDEA? Well, it has improved auto-completion for PhpStorm, for example. There are eloquent model accessors, facades, macros, and so on. So although PhpStorm tries its best to understand some of the more obvious Laravel features, sometimes it tends to miss out on some of that Laravel magic. And so Laravel IDEA helps to fill in some of those blanks and fill in some of those gaps so that you can use the IDE even better. It also has a really nice menu that you can use to generate code without having to go PHP artisan make blah blah blah. You can just do it straight from Laravel IDEA, which is really nice. There's some great refactoring items that it will allow you to do that you don't get out of the box with PhpStorm. Code generation items, like I said, creating controllers, creating resource controllers, form requests, service providers, et cetera, et cetera. All that's really easy. Generating eloquent models. That has a whole user interface for that just lets you really easily fill that out and even give your schema right inside of there. Define what that should be. You press OK, and it builds it all out for you, including form requests, JSON resources, policies, database factories, migrations, all that stuff. So really, really good stuff. I'm not going to go through all of them. What I will say, though, is if you are a Laravel developer and you happen to be using PhpStorm, this would at least be worth your time to look at. Consider if it's something that might be helpful for you, and I would suggest that it's probably going to be. And so definitely check that one out. At the very least, try that 30-day free trial and see if it's something that could be helpful to your workflow. I think it probably could be.
Sure. Just on Laravel idea, Adel Fazrakmanov is going to be at Laracon AU next month. So if you had not heard about it or have been using it and you wanted to say thank you and you're going to be in Brisbane next month, then definitely make sure you say hello to him and thank him for all the hard work that he does put into making that a very useful tool for, of course, PhpStorm users. On that note, Laracon AU, we've published the full schedule. I'm just flying off the wheel, doing this all live, Jake. So
you got it. You take it, man.
The Laracon AU schedule is live now. We published the talk titles a while back, but all of the 17 speakers have been posted alongside all of their talks. We've got 17 speakers, as I said, from across Australia and the globe, and we will also be hosting a Q&A with the Laravel team. Taylor Otwell will be there, Jess Archer, Joe Tannenbaum, Ryuta Hamasaki, and Andre Valentin, who's the head of engineering of the Laravel team. We're also going to have a few extra people, so there's going to be a good cohort this year of Laravel team members. And I was talking to Hank, who's their marketing person. I said, it's just wild to me that 12 months on, we're going to have a bigger contingent of Laravel team members that are completely different to the ones that we had last year in attendance, which is just crazy to me how much the company has grown. So excited to see that. The full schedule is available at laracon.au/schedule. There is, right now, as of the time of recording this, one early bird ticket left. So it might be gone by the time you hear this. Who knows? And then we've got another 25 tickets. So 26 tickets in total left for this year's conference, which is 3 weeks away. So if you haven't got your ticket yet, make sure you do that because they will not last forever. We've also added the ability for people to customize their badges. You can put your Twitter icon on there, or you can put your GitHub icon on there just to help people recognize you when they see you face to face, because you might have these interactions online with people and sometimes their avatar, you could have a full-on conversation or you in the GitHub comments of a pull request and things like that and have a conversation with this person and not realize that you're now standing face to face with them. So we've had quite a number of people take up that offer, which I'm excited about. So looking forward to seeing everyone in Brisbane in 3 weeks.
Very good. Last item on the news before we get to packages here. Have you heard of the open source pledge? Michael, have you heard of this? Have you seen this?
I've seen lots of marketing and these like wacky images, and
yeah,
it was like the NASDAQ thing in New York was lit up with thanking all of the companies that have committed to the open source pledge. So this is going great guns.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. The marketing seems odd to me. If you're trying to get people to pay money, the people who hold the checkbook are the CEOs, CFOs, and those are the people being called out in the ads. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that? It's like chief excuse officer. It's like, that's your play. Okay. Well, apparently it's working because there's a lot of people who have signed up for this. So this is the Open Source Pledge is a group of companies that have a shared commitment to paying maintainers of open source software. We all depend on it, right? I mean, we all use it every day. We're getting ready to talk about all the new packages that have been released in the last 2 weeks. And every week, every time we do this show, we talk about this, right? But there are certainly frameworks, libraries that we all depend on for nearly every single one of our applications. And when was the last time you paid one of those maintainers? Dare I say, probably never, unless they have a piece of software that they are selling to you in addition to the framework that they are building, right? This is why people like Caleb have Flux, and this is why Taylor has Forge and things like that. They've figured out a way to monetize their open source software, and that's how they pay the bills, right? But this is essentially just saying, no, let's just pay them for the software that we're already using. So the aim is really to establish a new social norm, if you will, in the tech industry. So that these maintainers don't have to like burn out and just abandon these libraries. So it's also supposed to help with related security issues such as those in XZ and Apache Log4j and those sorts of things. Hopefully those can become a thing of the past. So reading from the PHP Foundation, this is what they say. Every modern business, whether they know it or not, relies on open source software, but few give back. The PHP Foundation celebrates the open source pledge whose members have committed to correcting this imbalance. And together we can build a stronger, more resilient open source software ecosystem. So there are companies that have already signed up, like Laravel, like Sentry, Private Packages, and a lot more. And you can see the full list on their members page at opensourcepledge.com/members. If your company would like to join, they ask that you pay a minimum of $2,000 per year per developer at your company. And then you self-report annually with a blog post that outlines your payments to maintainers. I was browsing the members page, and yes, Sentry's on the top. Laravel's there. There are others, though, that are, and many people are donating more than $2,000 a year. In fact, one of the top companies I saw is donating $10,000 per year per developer on their team, which is crazy. But hey, honestly, if this software did not exist and we had to be writing it by ourselves, we'd be spending more than that every year to do this, right? So, well worth it. Definitely check that out. Consider that. And don't be a chief excuse officer, as they say on the marketing pages. Send that to your CEO and see what they say. See if you can get them to do that.
Fantastic. All right, into the packages. First up, everybody's favorite human, Paul Redmond, has given us some information about API Platform for Laravel. API Platform is a set of tools for building modern web projects. It is a framework for API-first projects built on top of Symfony components. Like other modern frameworks such as Laravel and Symfony, it's both a full-stack, all-in-one framework and a set of independent PHP components and bundles that can be used separately. So the main features of the API Platform package are to expose your Eloquent models in minutes as a REST API or GraphQL API, or both at the same time using the same code. It allows you to automatically expose an open API specification that is dynamically generated from your Eloquent models and is always up to date. It provides automated CRUD, automatically exposing nice UIs and playgrounds to develop using your API, automatically paginating collections, adds validation logic using Laravel form request validation. API Platform is compatible with Laravel's authorization system, so adding authorization logic using gates and policies is simple. It allows you to add filtering logic, and it benefits from the API Platform JavaScript tools for admin and create client and more. So this is basically a series of extensions that you can add using attributes where you would annotate your classes, your models, your things like that allows you to then expose endpoints automatically for a lot of stuff. So you can rapidly scaffold out REST API endpoints, provide documentation, and really kickstart development using this stuff. So this has been available for Symfony for a very long time. This has recently been ported across, so it works with Laravel. And so if you need to build APIs on top of Laravel and you want to stay with what you're familiar with, definitely check out this API Platform for Laravel package.
I'm going to first of all start by saying thank you, Paul, for writing this up. Second of all, as a person who has recently had to enter the world of creating and scaffolding an API for a brand new greenfield project, I've got to say, we tried this. and we abandoned ship on this one.
Really?
I saw Taylor tweet it out, yes, and I was like, perfect. Well, this is going to be the tool, right? This is going to be it. We tried it, and what I will say is it's obvious that it's been available for Symfony for a long time because it still feels like Symfony.
Right.
A lot of the configuration stuff is still like all the documentation has like everything in YAML files. There's no config file stuff to be spoken of as far as Laravel is concerned. Don't go look at the app service provider. Don't go look at the service provider that ships with it if you want to use it, because if you do, you might be scared off, as I was. It doesn't use very much of the Laravel container. It's like callback hell if it's like new this. It's a dependency injection all the way down, and it's a bit scary. I'm not hating on the team that's doing it. All I'm saying is this. We tried it, and it doesn't feel like it's there yet. It feels like it still has some work to go. What I will say is that I was browsing Reddit looking for another option, and everybody on there was like, number one, the Laravel team needs to come up with a first-party solution for OpenAPI and figure out how to do this. The closest thing I found was Scramble by DDoc. If you go to ddoc.co or scramble.ddoc.co, there is a really good solution there. And their pro version is $100, and it gives you the ability to integrate with not only just the very Laravel bare bones API stuff, but also to be able to use Spassy's filtering, query filtering stuff, as well as Spassy's DTOs. And that, I feel like, is the magic. It feels like it's plain Laravel with the added benefit of the query filtering, which you're going to need, by the way, and with the benefit of Spassy DTOs, which you're going to need, by the way, with versioning, with all that, and it builds out your open API spec, and it gives you stoplight docs. So it's not Swagger. Swagger UI is the one that the other one used, the API platform thing. That uses Swagger UI. You could use Swagger UI with the open API spec that Scramble generates for you, but it ships with Spotlight docs, which are also very, very good and have the same functionality as the Swagger UI stuff. In fact, I'd say it looks better, and it's easier to customize than the other one was. So if you're going down this path, I would highly suggest going and buying scramble.ddoc.co. Just go buy it. It's $100. You will thank me. I promise you will thank me, because we spent a week on the other one and we're like, nope, this isn't it. It's not there yet. It's not ready. No hate to Paul. I don't know if he's actually used it though, because if he had, I suppose he would probably abandon like I do. Okay, that's enough from me. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on it. I'm just telling you, my
I think
first party experience.
There's definitely a feel to Symfony stuff, and there's definitely a feel to Laravel, and they're very distinct from each other. So the fact that the Symfony stuff works for Laravel at all is a step in the right direction, I think.
Sure.
All of the like differences aside, I think over time, if enough people use it, then the changes will be made to make it feel more Laravel-like. Because I assume it was a Symfony dev that then ported this across to work with Laravel. So they're obviously going to be in the frame of mind of Symfony when doing it. And so over time, the community is going to hopefully pick it up and run with it. So it's good to have options. I think it's good for people that are like familiar with Symfony, wanting to come across to Laravel, have the option to do it as well. So yeah.
Yeah,
it's always good to have options.
Good call. Absolutely. Okay, enough from me on that one. Let's talk about pan. So pan is what you use to cook chicken. I would prefer cast iron if it was me, and they're not as easy to clean, but they are really good, and not what we're talking about today. Nuno Maduro has come out with yet another controversially named thing. It's actually not controversial, but it's like, is it pint or is it pint? And now it's just pan, but it's good.
I think it's good. I think it's pronounced pan.
Is it pan? You're lying to me. Oh, okay. Let's talk about what this is. Nuno released a new PHP package called Pan. Pan is a lightweight and privacy-focused PHP product analytics library. It's exactly what's written on the tin, and it's very, very simple. So I'm going to try and explain it to you in as few words as possible. This is a package you install with Composer. You just Composer require this thing. Then you can start tracking your pages or components with a data-pan attribute. So it will track the following things: impressions. So if somebody loads that data-pan attribute, right? If they hover over that item, or if they click on that item. So it tracks those three things separately. So you have it. So if you think of it like a table, like an Excel sheet, right? Name. That's what you have in your data pan attribute. Then next to that, you have, here's how many impressions you had, here how many hovers you had, here's how many clicks you had. Here's the second part then. It doesn't collect any personal information. No IP addresses, no user agents, none of that data that could be used to identify a user, so you don't have to have any of those cookie pop-up things. You don't have to have any of that nonsense. Doesn't matter. Also, it's not going to get blocked because it's not Google Analytics, right? It's none of that other stuff that page blockers block. It's on your domain. It's running on your domain. And so there you go. Here's some use cases. You have different tabs within a page with the same URL. You want to know which one is viewed the most. By adding the data pan attribute, you can now track this information. Easy. You have different register buttons in your application. You want to know which one is the most clicked. By adding the data pan attribute, you can track this information. You have different help popovers in your application. You want to know which one is the most hovered. By adding the data pan attribute, you can track this information, and so on. So, you might want to know how it works. Maybe you don't actually care, but basically all it does is this. With middleware, it injects a pan library, JavaScript library, into your HTML pages, looks to see if you have it enabled, injects that JavaScript, and then it listens to events like viewed, clicked, or hovered, and sends the data to your Laravel application, to a controller, to the backend, which is also installed with Pan. So it's easy as it can be, really. It's super, super simple. Install it, try it, check it out. Pan. That's my pitch.
Nice. This Nuno character, he's always shipping stuff. He's just building stuff and shipping stuff, and is always like useful things. So this is pretty handy. And if you just need some simple analytics onto your platform, you don't want to spend money, you don't want to have to worry about all these fancy things, great place to start, I think. So definitely check it out. Speaking of Nuno, I don't think this is a Sparsy package for Pest. So this is where we're drawing the connection. The Pest plugin route testing package for Pest. The Pest plugin route testing plugin for Pest helps you ensure your routes are okay in Laravel. This package has useful methods to filter down which routes to run, bind users to test routes, and more. The simplest example is testing all get routes, which you can do with a single method call. You call route testing, give it a name, and then chain assert successful. And all your applications have a high-level validation that returns a 200 status code, which is pretty neat. The route testing plugin features testing of specific routes with the include method, excluding routes from your test with the exclude method, route model binding support, running custom code before route testing, and ignoring test in the test output. So this is useful if you want to say, I want to test all of the blog or the post endpoints to make sure that they all load. And this will go through and do all of that kind of stuff for you. I don't know. So you can use the setup method, which accepts a closure, and then you can set up a user. You can set this acting as, and then bind the user to the route so that you can go and test all of your authenticated admin routes, for example. So this is very useful if you just want to broad strokes smoke test your entire application routes, just to make sure that you've got some level of coverage, that you haven't inadvertently put in, a breaking change. You haven't got a stray semicolon or a semicolon missing or something like that. So you can just go and hit every single every single route in your application to make sure that it at least returns a 200 OK. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is functionally doing the right thing, but you're not inadvertently shipping errors to production. So thanks to our friends Sparsy for this one. You can get it from GitHub with a simple composer require. We have links to all of the information for you in the show notes.
Speaking of Nuno Maduro, oh my gosh, another one from this guy. Laravel Optimized DB package. So if you remember, Laravel ships now with version 11 with SQLite as its default database. So the Pest creator and core Laravel member, Mr. Nuno Maduro, created this package to give you a good starting point for production-ready SQLite databases. What do we mean by that? Well, the package is meant for SQLite version 3.46 or above in a Laravel project, and it will work by applying a migration to your project and your runtime configuration that's applied with the package's service provider. So here are the settings that it applies to the database at the time of writing. I'm not going to read them. Should I read them? I'm not going to read them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 different settings that it sets. I'm going to talk about the high impact settings here. There are 3 that we're going to talk about. Number 1, journal mode set to write ahead logging. This is one of the most effective ways to improve your concurrency and performance in SQLite because it allows multiple readers and writers by writing to this write ahead log. So it allows the database to handle many reads simultaneously while still maintaining atomicity, and durability for writes. Secondly, and thirdly, the first one is cache size, increases the cache size to 20 megabytes, and then map size, which sets the map size to 2 gigabytes of memory. So both of these basically help you store more stuff in memory, reducing the need for disk I/O. So it's useful for databases that are read frequently or have hot data. A larger cache means fewer page reads from disk, so faster responses. So the package is still considered a work in progress, so use it carefully, but I think that's pretty good. This is like one of those, Forge recipes sort of deal. You know what I mean? Like when Forge was first sort of coming out, it was like, hey, we're going to do some things for your server that you might not think of doing, but these are going to optimize your server to run correctly if you're just serving web pages. We'll do that for you. Here's a recipe to run. This is sort of that same concept. It's like, hey, you might be new to SQLite. These are some things we found that help SQLite to run better. Just apply this. And so if you happen to be one of those people trying to run SQLite stuff, using it as your main database for your application wouldn't be a bad idea to check this package out.
Nice. Composer Package Executor, CPX, brings the functionality of NPX to Composer. If you've ever been tired of managing different development tools across projects, CPX is a handy tool developed by Liam Hammett that simplifies your workflow. Similar to NPX for NPM, CPX allows you to run any command from a Composer package even if it is not installed in your project. This will help you to say goodbye to version conflicts and installation hassles by taking care of package installation and updates behind the scenes, letting you focus on what matters, and that is coding. This ensures consistency across your project, whether you're working solo or collaborating on a team. So you would globally install CPX, and then you can call CPX vendor/package, and then a command, which is useful if you want to install a new Laravel project. So you could do CPX Laravel installer new, and it would run the new command. So it would pull down the Laravel installer, run new, and then make it disappear again. I don't know why you would use this specifically, but I can think of situations, things like Rector, like Pint, those kind of tools that you might want to use where maintaining a global version can lead you astray. You could run into issues where different versions need to be available at different times, which you can't do globally. And you may not, for whatever reason, want to install those as dependencies of your project. So if you switch between numerous projects, they may use different tooling, and so CPX will help you to normalize your workflow by providing commands that actually detect what tools your project is using and uses the correct one for you. So I have links to all of that for you in the show notes. If you have interesting use cases for this, then definitely let us know at Laravel News on Twitter, or myself or Jake directly, and be interested to hear what you're using these kinds of things for.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about Prism. What is Prism? Prism is a powerful Laravel package for integrating LLMs, large language models, into your application. Now, before we get too much further, big shout out to Mr. TJ Miller, good personal friend of mine and Michael's. And I will tell you, this dude has been working on this for what feels like forever. But I know he's been grinding in the last couple weeks just to kind of put some polish on this so that he can get it released out to the world. And I got to say, it looks awesome. Really great documentation, really easy to use. Let me talk about what it is exactly. So Prism allows you to easily use different AI providers using this package's driver pattern, which gives you a unified interface to work with popular AI providers out of the box. So instead of having to install 5 different, packages to interact with each different provider, Prism has 3 built-in providers available currently at the time of writing. If you want to look at the roadmap for future ones, you can, but there is also the ability to create your own custom drivers as well. The ones that it ships with are Anthropic, OpenAI, and Olama. Now, in the write-up here, we also have the code that you would use in order to call one of those. So let's talk about Anthropic. And we usually try and shy away from reading code on air. However, I will tell you that TJ really did sweat the details on this one to the point where it's actually super easy to read. So Prism, : text, and then we say using, and now you can specify the provider, Anthropic, and then as a second argument, you can specify which model you're interested in using, right? So you'd say Claude 3.5, Sonnet, and then you can provide a system prompt. So I believe this is where you can say to the model, hey, this is the type of personality you're going to exhibit. This is what I want my answers to be formatted like. You should not guess about things. You should tell me exactly what it says, blah, 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 whatever, right? And then you say with prompt, and that is where you pass in your actual question that you would be asking that model. You get the response back, and you just say response arrow text, and that will give you the text response that model will give you. Now, if you wanted to switch providers, it's as simple as saying using OpenAI and then GPT-4o, right? It's super simple, really, really simple, and you don't have to do anything other than just specify those in order to get at those different pieces, those different models, those different providers. Really, really good stuff. Here are some of the main features. So, of course, elegant provider integrations, like I just said, seamlessly switch between those different AI providers. Fluent text generation API. So you just arrow, right? And you get this AI-powered text that has an intuitive, chainable API. So it feels very Laravel-ish, right? There's also this idea of tool integration. So in addition to just prompting your model, you can empower your AI with custom tools and external APIs so you can extend those capabilities with Laravel-like simplicity. This is also something I know TJ is working on sort of as like a bit of like a suite of applications. This is step 1. This is link 1 in the chain. We got to be able to get Prism figured out. But I believe he's also working on packaging up pre-built tools that would be common tools that people would want to work with that you can then feed into these models as well, or kind of do additional things. Right? You get the response back, then you say, go check the weather. Then you can go, you can say what, you can even ask, this is crazy. You can ask, you can tell the model, here are the tools that you have available. So you could say like you have a weather tool, you have a Wikipedia tool, you have a whatever tool, and then you can prompt it and you can ask it as part of its response, which tool should I use to answer this question? And it'll say, you need the weather tool. So then you can say, okay, go grab the weather tool, go grab the weather, and then come back and then prompt it again. It's really cool. And now you can do this as a Laravel developer, feeling right at home doing that. So you also have a Prism server, which allows you to use tools like ChatGPT, web UIs. You know how that like ChatGPT UI comes back and it streams that response all back to you. You now have that UI built in with this package as well. So seamless integration with Laravel's ecosystem, built-in support for AI-powered tools and function calling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Documentation looks freaking awesome. There is also short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals for the roadmap. If this is something you're excited about, you should get involved in the development of this and reach out to TJ. He's insanely stoked about it right now. I'm insanely stoked about it right now, as you can tell just by listening. And I know TJ has put a ton of work into this. So check that out at ecolabsdev/prism on GitHub if you are interested. And reach out to TJ on Twitter and say, great job, because he deserves it and he's an awesome dude. So thanks, Paul, for writing that one up. And great job, TJ. Way to go.
The last package we have here is WireSpy, which is a sleek new debug bar for Laravel Livewire. WireSpy lets you instantly debug and interact with your Laravel Livewire components. You can inspect the state of your components, modify the state, and time travel through state changes to debug issues. You can also see events and details about those events with the Event Tracking tab. The last tab is a toggle for enabling hot reloading, so any changes your components make are tracked in WireSpy. This was released by Philo Hermans as a beta this week and already looks extremely useful. So you can get started with this by installing it via a Composer package. We have links to all of that in the show notes. Well done to Philo for bringing this to life. This is, if you've ever used Vue or React and have used their respective dev tools, that's that kind of thing, specifically for Livewire components. So definitely check it out. There is a video which we will also include in the show notes.
Awesome. Hey, we made it through another episode 225. Thanks so much for sticking with us. Find notes for this show at podcast.laravel-news.com/225. Reach out to us on Twitter at Michael Dorinda, at Jacob Bennett, or at Laravel News if you have any questions or if you'd like to comment on the show. If you liked it, we'd really appreciate it if you'd rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be amazing. Until next time, my friends, we will see ya.
Bye.